Okay, so back onto the main screen of the C3 ServoManager software. Under device selection, if I do an online device identification, it'll go out, connect to the Compax3 and see what type of hardware we have out there, and we're connected. You can see my unit here is an i30 with an Ethernet power link option, then T40. I'm just going to want to jog the motor back and forth, so I'm going to turn off those other features by going into the device selection, go into the power level SO63V2, that stays the same. F12 is for the incremental encoder, and I want to just do an I11 T11 for a base configuration and be able to jog it and see what the position is in the optimization screen. If you do an I10 T10 in velocity mode, you can jog it from the optimization screen. If you do it in torque mode or force mode, though, you cannot jog it in the optimization screen. You would have to do that from your controller. So select at least velocity mode if you're doing I10 T10. Here I'm doing I11 T11, which is a simple indexer for external PLC control. I'll be jogging it from the optimization screen. So you need to go through complete configuration. Under user-defined motors, you can see our x-axis file that we've created. Go ahead and we'll use the defaults here. We don't need to change anything here. We don't have a braking resistor connected. If you do, you can select these from a pull-down menu. Go ahead and click Next. The external load, if you know what that is, connected to the motor, go ahead and input those values for either the minimum or the maximum. If you don't know that, you can go ahead and click the checkbox. You'll notice that the default value of the minimum is 0 and the maximum is 40 kilograms, which is a very wide range on there, and we'll talk about that in the servo tuning in the next session. Go ahead and do Next. You can select either millimeters or inches for your travel units. For the machine 0, I like to use home mode 35, which says wherever I am, I can set that to my 0 position in the optimization screen. You can also use the home sensor or the end of travels. If you go into the homing mode wizard, you can see your different options there. If you want to home to a home switch, if you want it to bounce off the end of travel, if that's hit, reverse, if you want to home to a Z channel, and you have different directions that you can start, or start in the negative or the positive direction. Homing mode wizard helps you out there. The default value for the homing machine 0 speed is 10, so if that's in millimeters, it might be fairly slow if you have a very long travel range. I'm going to deactivate my limit switches. Go ahead and click Next. Jog velocity default is 10, which is fine. You'll notice in the tracking error this is 1, so it would fault out if your servo system has a very heavy load. 1 is doesn't scale when you select millimeters, so you might want to increase that. I'm going to go ahead and set it to 1 pitch distance until we get tuned, which is 62 millimeters. Go ahead and then click Next. Also, on the maximum speed, the default value is 100%, which you can see is 4.5 meters per second. Might want to dial that down. I'm going to go ahead and set that to 25%. Still, that's 1 meter per second, so that's 40 inches per second. You might want to even dial that down further. And you can always come back and raise that up. Go ahead and go through to finish, download the configuration. It's just saying that the last error is FF42, which is device not configured. It'll acknowledge that when you do a download. I want to go ahead and open up the optimization screen, so I'll leave that checkbox selected. Click Execute. Help window pops open, so go ahead and close that. The optimization screen has 4 quadrants. On the top left is software oscilloscope graph. On the top right has the status display. You can go online or offline. You can update the cyclic display. If you want to see some of the status values, you can go into position, drag the actual position up, just left click and drag it up to the status screen. You can also go into the actual speed and see those. Move these around so you can see your units as well too. If you go into the setup, which is the second tab on the bottom right hand corner, enable the setup, which means you're taking control of it from the software. You don't need any of the I/O wired up onto the X12 connector. You can energize it from this latch here on the right hand side, and then you can jog the motor back and forth, and you can see your position changing up in the status display. So you have control over there. If you want to change your jog speeds, since those might be fairly low right now, if you go into enter setup parameters, general setup parameters, there's where you can change your jog velocity. So if you want to set that up to let's try 100 millimeters per second. The jog acceleration is in rate. So if it's the same value, then 100 divided by 100 would take 1 second to accelerate. If I do a 10 times factor, then it would accelerate in a tenth of a second. Accept that input, and you can jog back and forth. See, it's moving at the faster speed. If you actually push the motor with your hand, you can feel it's fairly squishy, and we'll talk about the optimization auto inertia detection in the next module. That shows you basic motion after doing a linear motor configuration. This concludes this module.